Lance Chafin in the house. Good. You can tell me how's my sound quality. It is so muggy up here. Every time I put my elbow on this piece of paper, it sticks to it. I have to move it. It's driving me bonkers. So Lance says, "Oh, I was getting a reminder that I'm going live." Tom the Hungry Jerk says, "Hey, hey, hey." Daryl Johnson says, "Hey, Bob." Lance Chaffin says, "Sounds good, Thrash. Good, good, good is always good." Tracy Rothmeyer says, "Hi, Robert. Hello to you." Tracy, always wonderful to see you. Cindy D says, "Hello, everyone." Hello to you too, Cindy. Thank you. Daily Dan's Good Stuff says, "Greetings from South Carolina." At least that's the way he would say it. You do it better than me, but I'm working on it. Let's see. A lot of people saying hello to everyone. That's always so nice. Superplex says, "Good evening to all." Yes, Super, and I finally figured out I misspelled the word Thursday. I finally caught on. Keith E says, "It's alive." It's alive. Yes, very good Frankenstein reference. Love it. Love it. I make several references to Frankenstein over the years. You probably may have already heard this, but just for those of you who don't know, my favorite all-time comedy of all time is Young Frankenstein. There are some that are pretty close, but that's my all-time favorite. Justin the Braidwooded says, "Message retracted." And a message retracted to you, old friend. Tom the Hungry Jerk says, "Hi, guys and gals." Darrell Johnson, my cheerleader, says, "Don't forget to hit that like button." What he said. Mr. Lead says, "Thrash. Lead. Good to see you. Good to see you as always." Zuplex says, "The god of thunder is pissed." Thundar, the barbarian. Late, great Robert Ridgely. One of my all-time favorites. The voice of the 70s. Not only did he do Thundar the Barbarian, also did the animated Flash Gordon, and of course, Tarzan. Let's see who else we got. I think I've said hello to everyone in the chat. If I've missed you, please point this out to me, and I shall amend the situation. So tell me, how many of you figured out which concert it was Dave was going to tonight? I didn't want to give the game away. I didn't want to ruin his privacy, but I gave a couple of little hints in my memorabilia little post there. Tom the Hungry Jerk says, "Got a convention with Christopher Lloyd this weekend." He's always cool. He's. I was just watching. They had some highlights of Taxi actually on recently, and they had the one where he first tries cannabis when he's in Harvard. One of the funniest pieces of television history. Oh, and it's not funny. It's actually very tragic. The scene where he's trying to reconcile the loss of his father, and his father leaves him the tape, and it's the recording of "You Are the Sunshine of My Life" by Stevie Wonder. Christopher Lloyd got some very touching bits in Taxi. He was the comic relief in a comedy show, so he tended to fall through the cracks as far as the serious acting goes. But I think he deserved more than he got. Lance Chafin hit it right on the head. Yes, he certainly did. I thought the cousin Oliver Army bit was going to give it away, but Zuplik says, "T-Pawns, Emily promised she will make an appearance." That would be very, very, very nice of her. If she just shows up and gives me a purple heart, that in of itself will make it worth its while. Keith E says, "Elvis Costello, he said it about 10 times on the Tuesday live broadcast." Well, that's okay. If he wants to invade his own privacy, that's just fine. I didn't want to come out and say it because I didn't know if he had gone public. But like I say, scamp that I am, I have to give little hints. Steve, the Life and Sad Ending is in the house, says, "Hello, everyone. Hello to you, too." As always, Tom Lermy says, "Hi, everyone." Tom, hi to you. Thank you for joining us. Steve, the Life and Sad Ending says, "I invited my subscribers to the chat. Maybe we will see some new faces." That'll be just great, by the way. We will have to keep an eye on Bot Watch. We've been getting a lot of what I call Trojan horses. people show up into the chat, and at first they're just sort of like interested viewers asking interested questions, and things kind of go downhill from there. But of course, if you can vouch for them, Steve, and say, "Oh yeah, I know this one," and "Oh, I know that one," that'll be just fine. Tom Larry says, "What does the yellow light mean? Which yellow light? Do I have a yellow light behind me? I have this sort of, sketchy reading lamp. It's not really yellow. It is it's a green bulb though, so go green everyone." City D says, "Cool hungry jerk, he was great in Taxi. Christopher Lloyd certainly was." Tom Hungry Jerk says, I assume means I hope too. Sad ending. Yes, it's always nice to get new subscribers. By the way, I want to give a shout out. Hopefully, he'll be here later on, but just in case he doesn't, many of you remember Lee Mateus. He actually did a few guest appearances on some stuff that we did over on Retro Serial. He likes to do music breakdowns. He takes old classic 90s sounds and breaks them down both lyrically and instrumentally. Does some great stuff. He actually just did one. I don't know how many of you are Juggaloos out there, but he did a great one on my all-time favorite ICP number. Uh, uh, I can't. I just drew a blank. My favorite ICP number was "Underneath the Moon," and it was absolutely amazing. He also did a shout out for me and for ENC to his followers. He's got a couple thousand, and it was very, very kind of him to do that. So if you haven't checked out Lee Mateus, please do. Oh, Terrell Eugene Bellinger is in the house. Happy Thursday. Hello, Terrell. Great to see you as well. Thank you for joining us. Tom Lucky Jerk says, "I got one ICP CD. I have one too somewhere. But it's my music collection has become increasingly sort of it's buried in a box in my garage, labeled old tax forms or something, I think. Ken Wilkinson is in the house, says, "Good evening, Thresh." Ken, good evening to you too as well. It's great to see you. John Collins in the house says, "Okay, dang it to heck. The live stream can officially start now because I'm here, LOL. How is everyone?" To include Bob, the silvery smoothed voice one. Oh, John, thank you. You are too kind. You are too kind. There's more than one kind, and you are the too kind. Kind of painted myself in a corner there, but moving forward, let's see. Daily Den's the good stuff. Gives double googly eyes. Love it. Love the double googly eyes. So. Oh, and Trader of Mine says hi to Kenneth. So, I'm trying to remember where we left off last time. I don't think the conversation ended so much as just sort of sputtered out, but I'm always getting. Cindy just said, "What's the topic for tonight?" I kind of like the idea of just doing like a whole round robin thing. Any Game of Thrones fans out there, as you notice, I'm wearing my shirt. I just saw the premiere of House of Dragon. It's my understanding that most of you folks aren't huge Game of Thrones fans out there, but if any of you are and have seen the first episode, let me know. Any Walking Dead fans out there, I also saw the new episode of that Tales of the Walking Dead. Thought that was kind of interesting, but I don't want to give the game away. Other than that, why don't we stick to TV? Anybody watching any good TV? Anybody seen any good old classic vintage cinema? It's in fact, there was one thing I wanted to talk about that. As you folks know, I have many projects on deck. The retrospect on Wizards and the retrospect on the stuff is another one. But I had something I've been kicking around, and I'm not sure exactly how to encapsulate it. But have any of you ever had a situation where you saw a movie as a kid or just in your youth and no one else saw it? And you went for so many years without finding anyone else having seen this movie, you began to think that maybe you imagined it. You start to gaslight yourself. I'll tell you a little story. When I was like, I don't know, 7 years old, I stayed home sick. I had a bad tummy thing going on. I stayed home sick, and my mom made me some like high C drink or something, and I laid on the couch and watched TV all morning. And I saw a cartoon movie called Pinocchio in Outer Space. And I thought it was the coolest thing ever. The first movie I saw in the theaters, my dad took me in like 1971, was a rebroadcast of Pinocchio. And of course, you guys know I've always been a sci-fi buff, so Pinocchio in outer space. I mean, this is the best of all worlds. And it wasn't until I started watching YouTube that I actually found another reference to it. No one had ever seen this movie. If any of you've seen it, please let me know in the comment section to the side. But as a movie buff, I've actually had this happen to me quite a few times. I'll see these really scarce, very little heard of movies. And actually, Tug, the apologetic geek, actually saw a movie and he couldn't think of the title. And I actually said, "Oh, yeah, that's Journey to the Seventh Planet." And he was like, I've seen a lot of really obscure stuff. So, has that ever happened to you where you've seen an old movie, but no one knows what you're talking about? Because I've done that in a few cases. I think that might actually be maybe not for tonight, but a good project down the road. Zublik says, saw Seven Samurai recently. You should have said, I saw Seven Samurai subsequently. Practice your alliteration. Braidwooded says, Thrash, check out Thief. Sounds interesting. Terrell Eugene Bill says, what are your thoughts on Paul Rudd joining the cast of Hulu's only members in the building for season 3? I haven't seen 1 and 2, so unfortunately can't really comment on that. Let's see what else. Tom Hungry Jerk says, been watching Ray Harryhausen lately. I love the old Harryhausen movies. I even like Clash of the Titans, which was like his last work, but I thought it was a solid performance. It made a nice swan song. The Life and Sad Ending says, like the 5,000 Fingers of Dr. T. In fact, that's actually what made me think of it. I was actually talking about the 5,000 Fingers of Dr. T. And I saw it when I was probably right around that age. And no one else knew what I was talking about. But yes, very much like the 5,000 Fingers of Dr. T. Thank you for reminding me to bring that up. I appreciate that. Tom Laramie says, it's a bit from Taxi when the cab drivers have to take a test for their license. CL's character, Christopher Lloyd's character, asks the other cabbies, what does yellow at night mean? And they keep telling him to slow down. Thank you. Yes, that was the bit. Slow down. What does... Yes, that is actually hysterical. And every time you think it's going to end there, it goes on for one more round. It's wonderful. Cindy D says, I hated when you watched a movie and didn't know the title. You would miss the title on the channel in the TV Guide magazine. I hated that. Zublik says, I remember seeing Gulliver's Travels Beyond the Moon, but it was not an unknown movie. Gulliver's Travels Beyond the Moon. I've seen Gulliver's Travels, not about Beyond the Moon. Oh, and Daily Dan's The Good Stuff, of course, has the link to Pinocchio in Outer Space, full movie. Yes, which is on YouTube. Because anything is possible once you make up your mind. Jazz hands. And that's all the singing you get out of me tonight. Unless you request something else. Like Sea Cruise. Guys, make that go viral. Share with your friends. It's just insane enough to actually become viral. Trey Rosmeyer says, the 5,000 Fingers of Dr. T was one of those movies for me, Robert. Apparently it was for a lot of people. In fact, I just saw a retrospect on it. And that was one thing I talked about for years. I thought I was the only person who had ever actually seen it. Crystal Love Aaron says, hi there, I started a channel. You started your own channel? That's amazing. When I'm not on this one, I'll have to subscribe to yours. But Crystal Love Aaron, welcome to the party again. Thank you so much for joining us. She goes on to say, enjoyed your live stream a few weeks ago. Yes, we do remember. It was the one before last. It was a couple of weeks ago. Maybe it was more than a couple of weeks ago. But yes, thank you so much for joining us. So far, we're the big topic for right now is, well, old movies, TV, and music, of course. But we're talking about old movies that you saw, but for some reason, nobody you know did. Lance Javen says, Hercules with Kevin Sorbo. Love that show. Also, Xena. I remember those back in the 90s. Tom the Hungry Jerk says, I was just talking last week with a friend about 5,000 Fingers. Too funny. And Hans Conrad plays the villain in that. And he was just amazing. Mr. Led says 5,000 Fingers with Freaky. Drugs were consumed. Well, it's Dr. Seuss. I mean, it's outright surrealism. Zuplik says it's a Japanese cartoon. Um, I believe you're referring to Pinocchio in Outer Space, and I want to say it was Italian, although Japanese studios may have worked in there as well. Trey Rothmeyer says the Phantom Toll Booth too. My mother took me to see that for right around the same time. Actually, I want to say for my 7th birthday. I saw it in the theaters. One of those local theaters in my area were doing those like cheapo matinees, and I got to bring a friend. And I want to say it was for my 7th birthday, and that's where I saw the Phantom Toll Booth, and that was that Tex Avery? I want to say that was Tex Avery. But yeah, that's another movie that very few people know what you're talking about. Daryl Johnson says Jason and the Argonauts and the Golden Voyage of Sinbad. Love them both. If I had to pick one, I would go with Jason and the Argonauts. But you can't go wrong with a Sinbad movie. The Life and Sad Ending says the weekly afternoon movie after school was my favorite as a kid. They showed movies like After the Fox with Peter Sellers. I loved After the Fox. It was very cute in a sort of hokey kind of way. I just loved it. Lance Jenkins says Briscoe County Jr. Good time show. I love Briscoe County. I got to meet him actually once at a convention. The guy who played Ash. Bruce Campbell. I got to meet him at a convention for Suncoast years ago. Number one dude says, "Hey Thrash, good to see you live again. It's good to be seen and good to have you with us. Thank you." Wad Jamin says, "Howdy Thrash and everyone. Great to see you as well." Zublik says, "No Gulliver's Travels Beyond the Moon. I'm sorry. I've seen Gulliver's Travels, but I don't recall them going around the moon. But again, I'll take your word for it. I bet it's on YouTube. I'll try to find it." Kevin Davis says, "Hi, Tracy." Kevin, welcome to the party. Thank you so much. Oh, and he says, "It was Chuck Jones." Yes, thank you. That would have been it should have been my first guest. I don't know where I got Tex Avery, but again, classic vintage CV, non-Warner Brothers. But thank you, it was Chuck Jones. Darrell is reminding everybody to hit the like button. Oh, also subscribe if you haven't. Tom the Hungry Jerk says, "I remember watching Escape from Witch Mountain in the theater as a kid." There was. Does anyone else remember this? There were a couple of old. Again, this is on Cape Cod, rinky-dink theaters. Apparently, it happened more in cities than on places like the Cape that were very provincial. But theaters would get their hands on these cheap old movies and show them on matinees for kids on weekends, Saturdays and Sundays, and usually had some cool cartoon or Three Stooges short in the beginning. And that's how I got to see a couple of these old time classic kids movies when I was a kid. Zuplik says there was a 1967 Batwoman movie. I remember the Batman, but not the Batwoman. Zuplik goes on to say, "Yes, I think Gulliver's Travel is on YouTube. I'd be surprised if it wasn't." Kevin Davis says you should check out Atlantis, the Lost Continent. Is that the one that has the boss from Get Smart in it? All I can think of is Mel Wells, and that's not his name. Mel Wells is somebody else. But Max's controller. I actually have two movies called The Lost Continent. I have the MST3K movie that was riffed on. In fact, if you go to the Primal Swamps of my post, I actually do a 2 for Tuesday where I compare this schlocky old black and white adventure to a Hammer film about a cruise line that gets stuck in the Sargasso Sea and discovers the Lost Continent, which is actually a consortium of lost conquistadors. And yes, if the Atlantis Lost Continent is the one with the boss from Get Smart, I do want to. I saw that with my dad when I was like 4. And I remember he had to explain most of it to me. And he explained usually by saying, "Shut up and watch the movie." Steve, the Life and Set Editing says, how about Rosie Greer and Ray Milland and The Thing with Two Heads? I do have that on DVD as well. Yes, that movie is trippy. Although if you're going to do Ray Milland, horror, sci-fi, I would go with either Frogs or The Man with X-Ray Eyes. But Ray Milland did some excellent old sci-fi as well. Not to mention Panic in the Year Zero. Braid Wooden says, I grew up with the Three Stooges on Superstation TBS. Oh, of course. Thank you, Superlex. Ed Platt. Yes, if Ed Platt is in the Atlantis Lost Continent movie, I do own it. And Kevin Davis says, yes, he was. And Teresa Rothmeyer is just a model next says Oliver Platt. This is fun. We can just go off on a tangent. Now let's talk about Oliver Platt movies. But yes, everyone's saying Edward Platt because they're all being serious. And I think my wife just fell down the stairs. Is everyone okay? Yes, my wife is fine. Moving forward. Oh yeah, Tracy's Edward, I mean. Daily Den's the good stuff. Just said, fun fact, my dad took me to see Escape from Witch Mountain with Eddie Albert. Oh, really? Eddie Albert took you as well? Did you sit between them? When I was a kid, then 40 years later, I took my kids to see the remake with The Rock. Dwayne Johnson went to the movies with you guys? That's awesome. John Doe just said, hello, everyone, live from New York City. John Doe, welcome to the party. Thank you for joining us. Lance Craven says, Agent 99, please. Ooh la la. Yes, she was a very attractive young woman. Of course, now we're dirty old men for checking her out. Tom the Hungry Jerk says, MSC3K 3000 is on Pluto TV. It's also right here on YouTube, and if you're very lucky, you can check out a Fathom event. I went to one of those myself, actually. Zublik says, I remember Richard Burton did a movie entitled Tobruk, which is largely forgotten. I have that too. That's a great movie. That's about, what was the name of it? There actually was a group of German Jews that were recruited by the Royal Military to serve as like deep cover sort of agents because they knew German culture and whatnot. But holy cow, you said Richard Burton. Tobruk is actually the one with Nigel Green. What you're thinking of was called Raid on Rommel. And if I'm wrong, I will eat my microphone. But yeah, the Richard Burton film you're thinking of is Raid on Rommel, which is basically the same campaign. Trying to take out the Africa supplies. Zublik says Oliver Platt is an outstanding actor. Yes, he is. Kevin Davis says, I'm more of a Stooge fan with Curly. Most people are, but you got to give Shemp credit. He's certainly, he put in the effort. And if it wasn't for the fact that everybody loved Curly, I think Shemp wouldn't get such a bad break. For example, if there was a Three Stooges short that had Moe, Shemp, and Curly, it would be fine. Or Larry Shemp and Curly, it would be fine. It's just that anytime you see Shemp, it means you don't get Curly. And therefore, he gets sort of a bad break. Teresa Rosmeyer says, WFLD in Chicago was Son of Svengoolie and the Three Stooges for me. We actually got Son of Svengoolie out here. He broadcast, of course, from Berlin, Illinois. But yes, we used to get him out here as well, by the way. Great stuff. He actually turned me on to a lot of these old horror movies. My pops took me to see The Birds. Daryl Johnson. Very cool flick to see in the theaters. I've only seen it on TV. Hungry Jerk says Tobruk is a DC comic book. I did not know that. I believe it, but I did not know that. Zuplik says, T-Pons, how many movies do you have? I stopped counting at 300. Not at the movie 300. I stopped counting at the number 300. I'd say it's probably well over 5. But I only watch about a couple dozen of them. A lot of it is part of the collection. John Joe says, I'm watching the X from Outer Space when I got this notification. I love the X from Outer Space. That was actually a movie that a lot of people didn't see or know what I was talking about. I saw it on Creature Double Feature when I was like 9 or 10. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's like a Godzilla movie, only it's an alien, and it kind of looks like a fat penguin with antenna, and they lure it away with it gets convoluted. But X from the Outer Space is actually a good one. Life and said it and says message retracted, and a message retracted to you everywhere. My flock is everywhere. Sarah, how you doing, by the way? Thank you so much. Oh, and by the way, I've been meaning to text you for like 2 weeks. I'm so sorry. The season's got so crazy. I also got your message that Dan gave you my number. My flock is everywhere. She does some great stuff, by the way. She actually did a live chat not too long ago where they were discussing ancient civilizations. Very interesting stuff. She's actually invited me to try to be on at some point to talk about ancient civilizations and that type of thing, which I would love to do. But she's got some great posts on alien encounters and Bigfoot as well. Some nice Americana. She had this very soothing video the other day, which just showed a seascape, which I guess is one of her online friends' backyards, but it's beautiful wherever it's from. If you haven't checked out My Flock Is Everywhere, please do. Mr. Litt says anybody but Joe Doricio. I'm not sure who Joe Doricio is, but Joe Dorito. Oh, I'm so sorry. Joe D. Ritto. I'm so sorry. He was one of the replacement Stooges and not a particularly good one. Although Joe Besser drove me up the wall even more than him. Come on! You know, that, yeah. So where was I? Oh, it just did that jump. Apparently a bunch of you just all like responded at once. Oh, bunch of people saying hi to Sarah. And that's very, very nice of you to say hello to our new guests. Tom Hungry Jerk says, I love Shemp. Again, like I say, he didn't do a bad job. He wasn't curly. Terrell Eugene Billinger says, when Tupac Shakur and Biggie Smalls, Notorious B.I.G. were killed in September of 96 and March of 97, respectively, the world of hip-hop and the music industry were changed forever. I cannot argue with you there. Tom the Hungry Jerk says, I have a canceled check in my collection of Joe Dorita. He bought cigars. No kidding. No kidding. That's kind of cool. Let's see. Oh, Zublik says, yes, you are correct, T-Pon's Raid on Rommel. Great movie. Great. I probably have it. As you folks know, I'm a huge, huge war movie buff, almost as much as sci-fi. In fact, I'm sure many of you already know this, but for those of you who don't, my den, which is also my garage, I have colloquially named The Bridge. And that's because in all the old sci-fi movies, they're always trying to get to the bridge. And all the old war movies, they're always fighting over a bridge. In fact, I have a credo. Any movie with the word bridge in the title is a good one. War movie. I don't count Bridges of Madison County. But that's why I call my den The Bridge. Now, when I have a few beers and watch old movies in the bridge, I call it, I'm having a bridge night. And I don't need 4 for that. Although at least 4 beers will be nice. Wow, I had a little tangent there. I'll pick up where I left off. Oh, Cherry Thor's Minor says, I miss Creature Features. Me too. They brought it back once in like 2000 as like a whole nostalgia thing, but you just don't need horror host shows anymore. You can find them all on YouTube. Terrell Eugene Billinger says, what's your favorite Little Rascals AKR gang short? That's a really good question. Probably the one. It has Froggy in it, but he doesn't have the Froggy voice. And they come up with this brilliant idea to turn a barn into a nightclub and sell lemonade. And they only get one customer. And they keep trying to entice him to buy lemonade, and he won't. And that's the entire short. For some reason, that one always struck me as funny. I just did that jump thing again. So I'm trying to find where I left off. It's great you guys leave a bunch of comments. When sometimes it just causes the whole thing to go, and I don't want to skip anybody. I've skipped enough questions as it is. You know, I had 149 comments in the comments section on one of these. 849. That's almost 1,000. Oh, Sarah points out it's Sarah without an H. Because I say it phonetically, you couldn't have known that. But I just want that read into the record. John Collins says, Bob, have you given much thought to a separate channel from this one wherein you would opine on perhaps subjects that you find of import, giving people need to ponder leaving this channel as a desert? I will never leave this channel as a desert. And some people have actually said, "Oh, I'm sorry, your phone broke. My flock is everywhere." Some people have actually said that I should open up another channel. If for another reason, then I can keep the comedy on one and the vintage sci-fi horror on the other, because that's how I started it. I started out talking about vintage sci-fi and horror because I'm a nostalgia buff, and I'm really having a tough enough time doing one. And first rule of German military science is never divide your forces in the face of numerically superior opposition. So I'm going to stick with the one channel for now. Fans of my humor can stick to my humor, and fans of the sci-fi horror can favor the horror. And I'll put stuff on there for both, and we'll take it from there. But for right now, I'm going to stick with the one channel until I get at least the first 1,000. Maybe I'll break off after 1,000, but I have not decided yet. Kevin Davis says, just a reminder, Artemis 1 launches in 4 days. Thanks. Appreciate it. I forget my birthday someday, and I have actually. John Doe says they made a sequel of X from Outer Space, but I can't get past the first 3 seconds. Yes, it's that bad. I heard so. Isn't it done as a comedy? If it's what I'm thinking of, if we're on the same page here, it was supposed to be done as a schlocky comedy, and they just it was almost like a spoof, like they had Airplane in mind or something. Lance Chafin says, my flock just subbed your channel. She already got that. Let's see what else we got. Tom McDrick says, Bester drove me nuts. Did you mean Fester? Oh, Besser. Yes, yeah, we were just talking about that. What Gemin also subbed. Terrell Eugene Bellinger just said, wasn't the classic Canadian teen sketch comedy series You Can't Do That on Television responsible for helping put Nickelodeon on the map in the 1980s? Yes, it was actually. They needed programming, and that was one of the first things they got their hands on because it was cheap. And for some reason, kids in America loved it. I was a little old for You Can't Do Anything on Television. I was like 16, 17 at the time, and that was more game aimed for like 13-year-olds. But I watched it. I never grew up, and at this point, I don't think I'm going to. Let's see what else we got here. Sarah, my flock is everywhere says, got you back. I'm assuming you mean the song by the Jackson 5. Let's see. Zublik says, the only war movie I enjoy is Full Metal Jacket. Phenomenal war movie. And of course, Stanley Kubrick. John Doe says, it's gotta be the Choppa Arnold Schwarzenegger Predator. Zublik says, I miss Elvira. Oh, Dilly Dan's The Good Stuff says, when are you going to do more comic book videos? Very, very, very soon. In fact, once I get the Chromebook, perhaps you and I could actually collaborate like we talked about. Oh, and speaking of which, I want to do a Daily Dan's shot here. He went and did a solo post of his Bigfoot and Wild Boy project, the one we've been talking about for months. I don't blame him. I wasn't able to get something compatible for he and I to do, but he did it, and it came out very, very well. I have a few tidbits I'd like to add, perhaps maybe this weekend when you we do a 13 o'clock, when you do 13 o'clock and I join. But check out Dilly Dan's The Good Stuff's latest project on Bigfoot and Wild Boy. Steve, the Laugh of Editing says, bridge on the Require, bridge too far. Ode to Billy Joe. Okay, Ode to Billy Joe is not a war movie. But like the song goes, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Lance Chafin says, Zuper, okay, private pile. Tom Hungry Jerk says The Great Escape is my favorite war movie as far as war movies go. It's actually pretty good. Let's see. Zublik says, loved the scene when Sergeant Hartman got shot. Ouch. Mr. Led says, buckwheat is a no-no today. Yeah, he certainly would be. My Flock is Everywhere says, Dan, would you do a Star Trek stream with me together? Knowing his Star Trek. Oh, I actually do a compendium of all I can't talk tonight. The humidity's back and my brain is baking inside my skull. But I did a compendium on all 6 of the original Star Trek movies. It was at the bequest of Ken Wilkinson. If you get a chance, please check it out. People, I have a lot of old stuff that I'm sure a lot of you might enjoy. So please feel free to check out my channel and check out some of my earlier posts. Daily Den's Good Stuff has given links to his other channels, by the way, so you can check out his stuff as well. Steve at Life Inside Ending says message retracted to you as well. Let's see. Oh, Daily Den's Good Stuff says, LOL, OMG, I'm doing 5 channels. I really feel the comment, that comment. Again, 1 has always been enough for me. Oh, I did that jump thing again. Again, if I missed some of you, by the way, please bear with me. I think I left off here, but Terrell Eugene Billinger says, I know that Alanis Morissette got her start on You Can't Do That on television for a few episodes before moving on to find huge success in music. In one famous episode, she got slimed. Yes, she also did an entire song on irony without one valid case of irony in it. And that's the biggest irony in the song. Although I must confess, I do like her music. Dilly Den says he will do a show on Star Trek with Sarah. Good for you. Sounds fun. Keep me posted on when it's going to be on. John Doe says, yeah, it's correct. It's bad. Give me the classic. Oh, we're referring to X. Lance Javen says, loved You Can't Do That on television. Also, hey, dude, with that killer cacti. John Doe said, someone informed me that they had a banned episode of Our Gang where the dog tried to kill. I don't think that's true, John, but I really don't. Somebody says, T-Pons, do you have any Jack Kirby comics? I don't. Unfortunately, some of my old associates did. I don't talk to these folks anymore. I'm afraid. No, we just grew apart. They're still around, I'm sure. But yeah, most of mine is stuff from the 80s, really. That's when I started playing. Some from the 70s, but mostly from the 80s. Lance Javen said, my dad met John Wayne. Let's see. Steve Levin says, "Oh, to Billy Joe had a bridge in it." Yes, I did say war movie with the word bridge in it. Bridges of Madison County has the word bridges in it. There were a lot of movies with the word bridge in it, but specifically war movies. Duplex says, revenge, T-Pons, revenge. I have gotten on occasions, and it is sweet. Daily Dan just gave a link to his Bigfoot and Wild Boy post. Please check it out. John Cullen says, Bob, I missed your answer to my question. At the time, I'm just going to stick to the one channel, this one, and thus I will never, ever, ever leave this channel to become a wasteland. Thank you. And thank you for your concern. Daryl Johnson says, The Longest Day. Great movie. Little secret, for those of you who watch The Longest Day, there's one guy, he's a parachutist, and he goes long. He ends up in a convent. and he's trying to gather up his shoot. He's trying to be really quiet. He's trying to like get out of Dodge before the Germans show up. And the nuns who don't know what's going on, they all come out, and he sees them and he goes, "Shh!" And then he runs off. That guy retired to the town next door to me and was living there before he died. A lot of people I know had actually met him. I can't think of his name to save my life. But yeah, he'd bump into people at the store, the barber shop. He goes, "Yeah, that was me who went to the nuns in the longest day." Cindy D says, "I thought the grumpy teacher on You Can't Do That on Television was singer Iggy Pop, LOL. Wouldn't that have been priceless?" He did do a couple things on Nickelodeon, now that you mention it. I can't remember specifically what, but he did do a couple of things. I was just watching Repo Man the other day, and of course he did the theme song to that. Mr. Led says, "Terrell, Dennis Morissette sing on the old Ed McMahon Star Search show? That sounds so familiar." Tom Lunga Jerk says, "When Billy Joe McAllister jumped off the Tallahatchie Bridge." Did we ever decide what was actually thrown off the Tallahatchie Bridge? I think we did. So, moving forward. Zupelik says, "I really miss the comic books. Do you have any back issues of Mad Magazine, who its adult competitor, National, or its adult competitor, National Lampoon?" I assume that's what you mean. I have a whole stack of them right here. I did a wretched recap on a Mad Magazine not too long ago. Zuperlix, you not watch all my old material? But yeah, I do a thing on Mad Magazine actually. I'll do more if you'd like. But yeah, check out. I do a post on an old one, not from that long ago actually. Lance Chafin says Harper Valley PTA by Jeannie C. Riley. Daryl Johnson says Battle of the Bulge. I love that movie. I really do. I love that movie, particularly the Robert Shaw character. It's one of those movies where the villain is the most interesting character. Not the good guy, but the most interesting character. Terrell Johnson says Patton, yes. Terrell Eugene Bellinger says, "Didn't the Spice Girls really help jumpstart the renaissance of teen pop in the late 90s before Britney Spears came along?" To my understanding, it wasn't my scene, but it would seem as so. Hungry Jerk says they rotoscoped the Battle of the Bulge and patented Wizards. They certainly did. They certainly did. Let's just see. Zublik says Red Buttons. He was one of the paratroopers, but a different one. And holy cow, hold the proverbial phone. Emily Miller is in the house. Emily, you've been promising that you'll make an appearance. It is so nice to see you, Emily. Welcome, everybody. Welcome our friend. Or everybody welcome our friend, Emily. We'll get the introductions one way or the other. A perennial favorite on Dave's live streams and has graciously decided to join us tonight. And Emily, so far we're just talking about old movies and TV mostly, but specifically old movies that you saw maybe when you were a kid or when you were very young, but for some reason no one else saw them. And so you started to second guess whether or not you actually dreamt it or not until the advent of YouTube. We cite Pinocchio in Outer Space, 5,000 Fingers of Dr. T, and a few others. But other than that, we're just having like fellowship. Oh, and we seem to be also talking about favorite war movies too. So, but welcome to the party. Thank you. John Doe says one of the only war movies I could still watch today is Where Eagles Dare. That's a good one. That's a good one. Oh, and then a lot of people saying hello to Emily, and Emily saying hello to others. That's actually one of our biggest functions here, the fellowship. We always say hello to everyone. So I'll skip down to Trey through Ross Myers, who I just lost. Who says not on cable? PBS had a great show. Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? Yes, yes. The woman who was the director of the spy group was actually the DJ in the Warriors. You only saw her like lips. Hello, boppers. You know that was her. Thigpen, I think her name was. Yeah, Thigpen. I was, and she actually died a few years ago. Tragically, I'm very sad. Keith E says Cracked Magazine was also Mad Magazine competitor. It certainly was. I think I have one or two Cracked as well. That was the one that had the guy he with the overalls and the ball cap, and he was like the maintenance guy or something. Lance Chapin says, Cindy, we got the beat. They were referring to the Go-Go's. Tom Lucky Jerk says Carmen Sandiego helped improve geography scores in schools. I believe it. Sublik says Eisenhower hated the movie Battle of the Bulge. I'm sure he did. It was about as historically accurate as an episode of Hogan's Heroes. Let's see. Sublik says, here we go. I think T-Pons has a crush. Do not. Let's see. Daryl Johnson says, why don't you knock it off with the negative waves? Why don't you dig how beautiful it is out here? Why don't you say something righteous and hopeful for a change? If I know where you're going with that, that is a clip from the dialogue of Donald Sutherland from Kelly's Heroes. Either that or you're criticizing how negative and unprofessional I'm being. But I'm pretty sure that's from Kelly's Heroes. Let me know. Either way. Braidwood Inn says in Carmen Sandiego, the kids who just randomly got the U.S. and England lucked out. The ones who got Eastern Europe and Africa usually lost. When that came out, I was in college and doing European history and geography, so I pretty much lucked out. Daily Dan gave another link to Dave's good stuff. The good stuff. Thank you. And Emily says, "I'm good life, just getting ready for Halloween." I'm so glad you mentioned that. I was at a CVS today, and they had 2 full aisles filled with Halloween merchandise and decorations. Is it me, or is the Halloween celebrating starting a little earlier this year? I'm psyched for it. I love Halloween. I'm going to sit in my garage, watch Night of the Living Dead, and see if we get any trick-or-treaters this year. We didn't get any last year. Most of them actually go to Halloween-themed functions. But there used to be, in the neighborhood I live in, there used to be this huge residential area that had like a Halloween-style block party. And people from all over town used to go to it. And every year it's gotten smaller and smaller. Trick-or-treating is just so fallen out of fashion. But I do love me my Halloween, so I'm gonna deck out my garage and watch old horror movies. And hey, if no one comes by to have any candy, that's more for me. John Collins says Bridge on the River Kwai again. Great one. Talking about Lynn Thigpen. I couldn't think of her first name, but yeah, Lynn Thigpen, who was the director in Carmen Sandiego and the DJ in The Warriors. Bobbers. Duplex says Halloween is 2 months from now. Yes, it is. Emily Miller goes on to say, I love Halloween. Yes, we all do. Kevin Davis says October is my favorite month. I used to love October when I lived in the Berkshires. The leaves started to change and the air got so crisp. And I mean, it's nice out here on eastern Massachusetts, but western is where it really got brilliant. Tom the Hungry Jerk says we're getting to set up our haunted house called Nightmare Isle in Vallejo, California. Cool. I'm sure you miss New England this time of year, though. Here we are. Tom Eugene Bellinger says Grease was released in 1978, the same year as Superman, Animal House, The Wiz, Halloween, The Deer Hunter, and the infamous Star Wars Holiday Special. Yes to all of those. Zublik says, always with the negative waves, Moriarty. That confirms. Yes, Moriarty was, Darren McGavin played Moriarty. And that was from Kelly's Heroes. Tom Laramie says Lynn Thigpen was also the parent in Lean on Me and Get Joe Clark out of Yipped. Well, Jevin says, I'm back. Thank you. So nice you could make it back. Daryl Johnson says, Oddball. What did you call me? Oh, I get it. I get it. It's from Oddball was Donald Sutherland's character. Tom Laramie says, Out of the School. That was Out of the School. Yes. Daily Den's Good Stuff says, I've one ever had one movie star crush, and guess who will appear in 10 comments? Okay, we'll have to find out who his movie crush was. Oh yes, John Doe says Kelly's Heroes is another good movie. Yes, thank you. The Life and Editing says, "Hey Thrash, are your college loans being forgiven? I went to college the old-fashioned way. I had my dad pay." The fool. Kevin Davis says, "Well, I do have to leave. I have stuff to do." Kevin, thank you for stopping by. The fact that you can make an appearance means a lot. Thank you. And don't forget, like and subscribe and share and all that good sort of rot. Emily Miller says, Halloween is all year for some of us. It sure is. Mr. Lid says, Hobby Lobby is set up for Christmas already. But it's a Christian store. They'd almost have to be. It's Christmas every time there. Cindy D says, I work at a retail store. We put our Halloween stuff out on the 4th of July. People come in and say it's too soon. It is. I used to get that when I worked retail. People would actually get mad at you. Yeah, why are you doing this kind of stuff now? Rah, rah, rah. It's like, hey, I'm trying to stay alive economically, you know. Lance James says that's way too early. Braid Wooden says it's never too early for retail. People will buy anything at any time. Well, you know, they have that chain of stores out here called Christmas tree shops, which actually that's what they start. They realize retirees never stop shopping for their grandkids. So you can sell them Christmas presents all year long. They'll just stuff them in the attic or in the guest room or wherever. So they'll never stop shopping. It was a marketing buzzsaw. Emily Miller says Salem, Mass is in my bucket list. I almost went to Salem State College. I almost went there. I had the paperwork all filled out and stamped and everything. And right before I mailed it out, it had to be mailed out the next morning, but right before I mailed it out, my the school that had been my first choice contacted me and said you're accepted. So I went there instead. But I almost went to Salem State. I have been to Salem. It's a beautiful, beautiful city. Tom, the Hungry Jerk, says originally from Massachusetts, been to Salem and Plymouth, both great places. Joel Jones says, I put a spell on you because you're mine. Yeah, Screaming Jay Hawkins, love it, love it. I love old music, as you guys probably already know. John Collins says, Lynn Thigpen also played a kick tushy role in Lean on Me. I believe the character's name was based on the actual person whose name was Mrs. Barrett. Someone else mentioned that earlier. I don't remember her in Stand By Me, but I bite my tongue on Lean on Me, but I'm sure you're right. Ziplik says, how old is the old man T. Pons? Let's see. My father will turn 75 in November. 75. He hadn't quite seen his 20th birthday when I was born. So he's actually just under 20 years older than I am. Terrell Eugene Bell just says popular TV shows that debuted in the year 1990, Twin Peaks, Law and Order, Fresh Prince of Bel Air, In Living Color, and Beverly Hills 90210. Gerald Johnson says Twin Peaks, good show. Dancing Midget tripped me out. Keith E says CVS wants you to buy Halloween candy now, like it's going to be there on Halloween. I know you're just going to like nibble on it. It's going to become like movie goodies. Emily Miller says, I never buy holiday candy before a few weeks of the holiday. What's out early is back stock. Tom Lermy says In Living Color was a great show. Did you know that Jim R. Winnie? Zublik says Jennifer Lopez also starred in Living Color. Yes, she was one of the flag girls. She also did the choreography, I believe. Life and Editing says I worked in a Christmas store. Honest, someone asked me some dumb questions like, "Where are your nativity sets?" Not nativity, navity, naivete. John Dose's music, movie, and TV is horrible now. It's certainly not as good as it used to be. Of course, what is? Lance Chapman says, got to go. My phone's about to die. Lance, thank you so much for joining us. Peace and chicken grease. Tom Lingerjerk says, love Stand By Me. I love it too. It was one of my favorite coming of age films when I was a kid. Insane cast. And speaking of Sutherland, Kiefer, that was one of his big breakthrough films, Kiefer Sutherland. Tom Laramie says, can't type, was credited himself as James Carey. That makes sense. I knew you were going somewhere with that. I just couldn't quite place who I should have put the pieces together. A lot of people saying goodnight to Lance, and as well they should. Take care, Lance. Charlie Eugene Bellinger says, why are Herman's Head and Parker Lewis Can't Lose not as fondly remembered as the other Fox shows that were airing during the early 90s? That's an excellent question. Probably because the stars kind of fell off the face of the earth. Usually when a star has staying power, people want to see their early stuff. But the stars of those shows didn't really explode as some of the others did. Big Guys 45's in the house. You got to check out Big Guys 45's if you haven't already, folks. He's putting out some great material. Says, I'm here. I really want to get the 700 subs by the end of August. Yeah, come on, guys. He's at like 600 and change. We get him to 7, and they'll get me to 800. Only I get a long more ways to go. Zuplik says, is the old man still demanding a refund? Big S45 says, dinner time, however. Don't want to interrupt your dinner. If you want to come chat with us during dessert, please do. If you decide you want to stick it out, please. But either way, Big Guys 45s, thanks for joining us. A lot of people saying hello, goodbye to Big Guys. Truth Myers says, I liked Herman's Head. Me too. That was the first thing I remember seeing Hank Azaria in. Oh, Cindy D says, that's great, Big Guys 45. I love your channel. I'm glad some of our folks have checked out his stuff. Good. Hopefully more will. The Life and Editing says, also at the Christmas store, Pope John Paul II was just installed as Pope. We had some commemorative ornaments with his picture we sold out. I don't know if that's tacky or not, but wait, who am I to say? I'm not going to read that second comment, Live and Editing. But so anyway, does anyone have any other old? One of the ones I actually really thought, I imagined this one. I got one of those horrible summer colds, and I couldn't sleep, and I'd gone downstairs because my room was way too stuffy. It didn't have cross ventilation, and I went downstairs and I put on the TV, and I found this old sci-fi movie called Wizards of Mars. And the only thing that movie's ever remembered for, it has a 3-minute monologue with John Carradine playing the chief wizard of Mars at the end. And literally no one had ever seen it. I really thought that was a fever dream. So any other rare movies that you've seen no one else has, please read into the record. Big Guys 45 says, so like and subscribe, help each other out. Definitely. We should all help each other out. And we'll all get to thousands. John Doe said Lita Ford was on Herman's Head as a guest. She was. I had forgotten that. That show actually had a few good guests, if I remember correctly. John Collins says, Bob, may I ask a regional Massachusetts question. I'm going to ask the question. I will ask for forgiveness later if needed. In Salem, Mass, do they show the witch history or do they shun it? It's actually very, very strongly embraced um, by much of the town folk, by historical societies, and even members of the town government. They consider it part of their heritage. Even some of the less appetizing parts of it, it's such a big part of their story. They they present it to the world in a very tasteful manner. I should actually talk about that. Maybe around Halloween I will, by the way, because there's some really cool stories. One involving the sheriff, and some involving the future generations of some of the witches. It's actually very interesting. Terrell Eugene Billinger says, "Do you remember the short-lived 1986 CBS produced show called Downtown with Robert Englund, Freddy Krueger as a pre-law, Blair Underwood, and pre-law Mariska Hargitay?" I Downtown? No, I don't remember that. Emily Rimmer says it's an oldie, but I'm a big fan of the Topper movies. That's ringing a bell, but I can't quite place them. John Doe says, anybody remember Puma Man? Again, it's ringing a bell, but I can't quite place them. Dre Minor says, good night, everyone. Gotta go. Get up early tomorrow. Please get some rest. Tracy, take care of yourself. Thanks for joining us. Let's see. Daryl Johnson says, I wish I had never seen the Blair Witch Project. You can just unremember it. Emily Miller says, the best part about Salem is Montgomery's statue. Terrell Eugene Billinger says, are Brockton, Worcester, and Cambridge considered to be suburbs of Boston? Cambridge, yes. Worcester is its own separate city. I was born on Burncoat Street, by the way. And Brockton, that's like too far south. That's more, yeah, no. I wouldn't consider that a suburb of Boston, but Cambridge definitely is. I used to have an aunt and uncle lived in Cambridge. Elizabeth says, I saw Brainiac as a toddler in Spanish. Its Spanish title was Baron von Terror. I've seen Brainiac, actually. That's the one, the demon, and he comes back 20 years later for revenge. He was a witch or something, warlock, and his tongue sucks out people's brains. They made some fairly innovative horror movies in Mexico at that time, actually. Let's see. Let me say good night to Tracy. John Doe says Puma Man is 70s TV superhero movie. It's ringing a bell. I can't place it. Tom Longerjerk says, I remember the Topper TV show. Why can't I picture Topper? Please, somebody give me some details, because there's a bell in my head, or it's the tinnitus again. But give me some details on Topper, and I'll let you know if I've actually seen it. Zublik says, is Providence a suburb of Boston? Providence is in Rhode Island, and you know that. Providence is its own separate enclave. But although parts of Connecticut and New Jersey are suburbs of New York City, but no, Providence has its own separate entity. I have been there, by the way. It's not a bad little city, but yeah, I wouldn't consider it suburban Boston. Terrell Eugene Builder says, have you ever been to Gloucester? I have. Not for many, many years, but I have. It's like Cape Cod, only smaller. Life and Editing says, well, I guess my crude comments are inappropriate. Apologies. Good night, all. I never said your apologies are. I never said your apologies. I never said your comments were inappropriate. There was one I wasn't going to read out loud, because if I said it, it might have seemed inappropriate when I said it out loud. But Steve, anything you say do is always welcome. And Steve, thank you so much for joining us. But if you got a call tonight as well, thank you so much for joining us, Steve. Take care of yourself, and looking forward to your new projects. Tom Longer Jerk says Providence is 1 hour away, at least. Emily Miller says Hungry. I never saw that, but the movies had Cary Grant. Oh yes. I can't, but again, I'm trying to that. Pardon me. Sure, I've seen one, but I can't place one. Ziplik says Newark is a suburb of New York. Yes, as I was saying it, but yeah, no, I wouldn't consider Providence a uh, suburb of Boston. Tom Laramie says Hungry did it star Kate Jackson and Andrew Stevens. Let's see. Emily Miller says Cary Grant was a ghost. Well, he was after the car accident. Okay, I do remember them now. I don't think I saw them, but at least I know what we're talking about now. I'm not used to people mentioning a movie franchise and having me not know what they were talking about. Tom Laramie says T for two, and two for T. Well, we'll see for two. In any event, of course, in Roman terms, C meant 100. Ken Wilkinson says, I live in Warwick, Rhode Island. Okay, so Ken, back me up here. Providence is not a suburb of Boston, Massachusetts, is it? Providence is its own separate urban area. Tom Hungry Jerk says, if I remember, the TV show didn't have Carrie. Oh, the TV incarnation. Wadge Evans says, I enjoyed Arsenic and Old Lace. One of my favorite old black and white comedy classics. Just a funny, funny movie. With Raymond Massey doing comedy. And of course, yes, Cary Grant was good. Everyone in that movie. Everyone in that movie was great. Peter Lorre almost stole the movie. I love when they're trying to figure out how many people Johnny had killed, and they're going, well, one in South Bend, two in Johannesburg, and you can't count the South Bend. He died of pneumonia. He died of pneumonia because I shot him, and it's like cute having an argument like about death, only having it like this very lighthearted, like little banter back and forth. Tom the Jerk says, I was born in Woonsocket. That's also in Rhode Island, for those of you unfamiliar with New England geography. Terrell Eugene Miller says, isn't Westchester a suburb of Philly that's also a college town? That doesn't sound right. Oh, Tom Laramie says, gotta go. Have a good night. Hey, Tom, take care of yourself. Everyone's crashing early tonight, but I'm glad you made it for what you did have. Sublik says, T-Pons, how many movies do you have in your collection? Didn't you ask me that like an hour ago? And I gave you a wonderful answer. I said I stopped counting at 300. Not the movie 300. I stopped counting at the 300 count. Probably around 5 is my best guesstimation. But like I said, I have crates that I haven't like watched in ages. But I do have, I'd say, about 500 movies altogether. Pardon me, I have to have some of my lemon water. Let's see. A lot of people saying goodbye to Tom. Cave E says, I'm just not hearing it right. Is it big guys 45s? Big goof? It's big guys, like guys who are big guys, and then the number 45s. And it's a show about mostly music singles, hence the term 45s. But you say you couldn't find it. But yeah, try big guys 45s. It looks like you put big guys 45. It'd be 45s. Maybe if we ask Dan nicely, he'll actually give us a link. Dan, are you there? Keith E says, I graduated Bryant University in 1979 when it was Bryan College. Wow, that's actually really, really cool. You got a few years on me. I didn't graduate till 91, and it wasn't from Bryant. Elizabeth says, sorry, I was busy at the time. Okay, I just want to make sure you weren't gaslighting me. Although Gaslight, that's another good movie. Um, Darrell Johnson says Peter Lorre, Mr. Moto. Yes, he did play Mr. Moto. Zublik says big guys eating supper. Yes, he left briefly to have his repast, but I'm sure he'll be back in a minute. John Collins says, Bob, did you see my last comment? I'm actually going to scroll back because I saw a last comment. I don't know if it was your your last one was about the history of witches in Salem. No, it's very nicely and tastefully embraced, even though it's certainly a tragic part of Salem's history. The town of Salem and the historical societies and even elements in the Salem government do embrace it and give it the sort of projection, the remembrance it deserves. There's actually a great story, which I'm not going to share with you guys tonight. It would work better closer to Halloween. But there's actually a pretty cool story involving the sheriffs of Salem and their involvement in such. But anyway, John, yes, Salem treats its the witch of finding heritage very very tastefully. Let's see. Tom Hungry Jerk says, "You know, Sunstrom." John Doe says, "I like the movie The Night Flyer. Good Halloween movie." I think I saw that. That's ringing a bell. Zublik says those pilgrims were religious fanatics. I'm afraid they certainly were. Emily Miller says, "What did?" Oh, Emily Miller says what they did to those people was horrible. It was, and they certainly reflect on that. It's certainly dealt with. They don't minimalize it or try to turn it into some, Hollywood level pap. They take it very, very seriously and give it the reverence it deserves. But Salem does embrace its heritage, and again, if you ever find yourself getting there, I'm sure you will. Everyone I know who's ever gone to Salem for like Halloween or for any of the witchcraft society lectures, I guess you'd call them, has certainly enjoyed the experience. Big guys, 45s. Oh, Keith E. That's another thing. It's big guys, but there's a hyphen, not a hyphen, that little doohickey over the S. It's big guys, possessive 45s. Big guys. Keith E. was trying to find you and is having difficulty, and perhaps that punctuation mark, which I can't believe. My last English class was 30 years ago. I'm sorry. Is the possessive is probably what you were missing. In any event, I just got done eating up my unhealthy 20-piece spicy McDonald's chicken McNugget meal with a large cup of orange lava burst flavored high C fruity sugary drink. LOL. Sounds great to me. He then goes on to say, Hungry Jerk, great username. Laugh my backside off. Tom Hungry Jerk says, I'll give Salem a no comment. You know what? And again, if people do find the glamorizing of a tragic element in poor taste, I certainly understand it. I certainly do understand it. But John was asking me how the city treated it. A lot of cities that have like skeletons in their past like that try to cover them up altogether. And I think Salem has done an excellent, excellent job of trying to reconcile it, again, tastefully. But if people want to be like, more than understand. Keith Wilkins says, I am going to Salem on October Thrash. A lot of people love to go during Halloween. Public says the victim's family should demand retribution. I thought they did. Honest to God, I thought they did, or some of them did. John Collins says, Bob, how many copies of that shirt do you own / possess? I only ask because either you have many copies or you really, really enjoy that shirt. I really, really enjoyed this shirt, by the way. In fact, my wife just did laundry today. And I go, you know what I think I'll wear tonight? I also wore it tonight because, of course, I just watched the first installment of the Game of Thrones prequel, House of Dragon. I watched that tonight. So in the spirit of Game of Thrones, I wore my Game of Thrones shirt. But yes, I also try to wear shirts that make sense with the show, something pop culture relevant. But yes, I really enjoy the shirt. Big Guys 45s says, Keith E, if you want to subscribe to me, then search up specifically Big Guys 45s with the apostrophe. Thank you. I can want to say comma. Apostrophe in the channel's name. Thank you so much in advance. Yes, make the guys possessive. Tom Huggy Jerk says, Big Guys, it's a wacky package, third series sticker from 1974, where I got the name from. Emily Miller says, apostrophes. Yes. Zublik says, possessive apostrophe. Yes, not all apostrophes are possessive. But in this case, because it's the guys 45s, it's the Big Guys 45s. Emily Miller says, the way people are, if you did have paranormal or supernatural abilities, would you tell anyone? Then, no. These days, yes. In fact, I went to school out in the Berkshires, and they actually did a haunted history on the town in the Berkshires where I went to school. And in fact, one of the houses they showed was right next to my old dormitory. Tom the Hungry Jerk says, I got to eat soon. I'm starving. Zublik says, do they celebrate Halloween in Salem? Yes, that's actually what I was driving at. A lot of these witch trial historical societies come out and serve as a remembrance to the actual witch trials. Big Guys 45 says, Emily Miller, hi there. I don't remember you at all. Sorry. If you're new here, then definitely feel free to like and subscribe to Thrash Pondo Pawns. Thanks in advance. Big Guys, thanks so much. Actually, we actually met as many of my people in my comment section, and you should too sometime. Dave Sundstrom's. Dave Sundstrom's the good stuff. He does live chats frequently. In fact, if you check back there, Daily Dan has a link to Dave Sundstrom. We all actually met at Dave's channel, and specifically through some of his live chats. And if you like my stuff, you got to check out Dave Sundstrom's. He has some of the best of music, movies, and TV from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Specifically TV. He's a huge TV nostalgia buff. And his posts are far, far, far more polished than I am. And he has things like games, trivia games specifically, and other things. His shows are really, really great. I lucked out. He was going to an Elvis Costello concert tonight, so he was unable to do his show. On nights when he can't do his show, he permits me to fill in for him, so people still have something they can tune into. But some night, if I'm not on, check out Dave Sundstrom's the good stuff. You shan't be disappointed. Elizabeth says, do you know where the bodies are buried? No. And I wouldn't tell you if I did. Nah. Tom, the Hungry Jerk says, I know they have covens today in Salem. Oh, yeah, they do. There are some, I guess you would call practicing covens today in Salem, Mass. Charlie Jean Bellinger says, which gone but not forgotten fast food restaurant chain did you like better? Burger Chef, Ponderosa Steakhouse, Ponderosa. They had a Ponderosa in my the town next door to me where the mall was. And not only were they the best steaks in the world and Black Angus burgers, that I love their a la carte sides, and they used to show on the wall in the back old black and white silent movies, comedies mostly, which is probably what caused me to become fascinated with vintage film. So I'm going to have to go with Ponderosa. John Collins says, did it ever consider granting financial reparations for those families or at least their descendants because of that situation? Makes a very strong case for some sort of restitution. I believe they did. I'm not entirely 100%, but I believe they did. They talked about that on something years ago that I saw. Tom the Hungry Jerk says, I drink and I know things. Yes, that's actually from Game of Thrones. And if there's a more appropriate expression for me, I don't know what it is. Keith E says used to call it an apple strophe, but if I can't find it, I'll leave a message on this video tomorrow. Oh, apple strophe instead of apostrophe. Don't worry, Keithy. We'll get there in the end. I promise. I promise both you and Big Guys 45 says. Zublik says, I liked the Golden Skillet a lot. Here's one. John Doe says, the Catholic Church formally apologized, had a little ceremony, and laid a stone carving on the grounds of where it happened. And everyone has accepted that and moved on with their lives. The only problem is those would have been the Puritans. They wouldn't have been Roman Catholic. It would be nice if Rome also apologized, but it would have been predated Catholicism in that area for the most part. Emily Miller says only my kids would know if I had certain abilities. Yes, as you were saying, you'd probably want to hide them, and I don't blame you. Let's just see. Ziplik says, are these skills associated with black magic, Emily? Didn't she just say she wasn't going to say anything? Trilly Eugene Villager says, didn't Showbiz Pizza change its names to Chuck E. Cheese's? I actually just saw something on that not too long ago. One company bought the other one out. In fact, I believe it was Showbiz bought out Chuck E. Cheese. And so what happened was, for clarity of franchise, they went all with Chuck E. Cheese rather than have some of one and some of another. I believe there was something like that with the Ground Round years ago. And another restaurant that the Ground Round bought out. But anyway, yeah, that's why their business models were so similar. They were a very similar concept, and one eventually did buy out the other. Thank you, Dan. I remember I said if you asked Dan nicely, he'd give you a link. Daily Dan's the Good Stuff has given us a link to Dave Sundstrom. Oh, and Dave, if you could give us, I think you already did, but if you could give us one more link to Big Guys 45's. Keith E is having trouble subscribing. Tom Langerdrick says, I need a devil dog. East Coast snack. Good stuff. They don't have devil dogs on the West Coast? Wasn't that the German name for American soldiers in World War I, devil dogs? That just rings a bell. Emily Miller says, skills are skills, Superplex. And he responds, yikes. Big Guys 45 says, I'm actually going to make a self-production video for myself tonight. Hopefully it actually works, LOL. Big Guys, I'm sure it will. I'm sure it will. Tom the Hungry Jerk says, met Dave Sundstrom. What a great guy. It was fun to hang out with him. Someday I'll probably, I'll hopefully meet him myself, actually. He used to come to Massachusetts for work. So I was hoping I'd meet him then. We could go to lunch or something if he had to come out for work. But he has since retired. And Dave treated us guys to lunch, too. That was very nice of him. Well, he said Lynch. He clarified it to lunch. I knew what he meant. But people are glad that he clarified. Yes, please do. Particularly as we were just talking about Salem. Zubik says, I believe the descendants of the Pilgrims are called Congregationalists. That sounds about right. And now you know what it's like to have your autocorrect turn on your Superplex. Terrell Eugene Billinger says, what's your favorite McDonald's food? Double quarter pounder with cheese. Superplex, Dave treated you to a Superplex. This is what we're talking about. Oh, okay. Keith E. Daily Dan's The Good Stuff has given us a link to Big Guys 45s. So if you can attach the link. Tom Hungry Trick says, who's that guy on your shirt, T-Pons? This actually is Tyrion Lannister. This will mean nothing to you if you don't watch Game of Thrones. He's actually a person of small stature, but he is one of the members of the very, very, very powerful ruling families in Game of Thrones. It's sort of like a medieval society. and there are different houses warring with other houses, and he's one of the most powerful ones. His father's ashamed of him because he's a very small stature, but he's very, 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 very intelligent. So they keep him around because he can figure things out. And his catchphrase is, I drink and I know things, because he's also an alcoholic. But yeah, that's Tyrion Lannister. Daily Dan says, I missed 10 minutes. I had to take a call. Dan, no worries whatsoever. Just glad you were able to throw those in for us, and I appreciate it. You're my principal mod in my mod squad. John Collins says, Bob, did you enjoy that ubiquitous 80s or 90s HBO offering Tales of the Crypt? I did not enjoy that show as I was a young scaredy cat at the time. However, I enjoyed the skeleton mascot in his voice, the Crypt Keeper. Crypt Keeper was the best part of the show. John Kaiser, I believe was the actor's name, who actually was also, speaking of the Three Stooges, there was a behind-the-scenes movie many years ago about the Three Stooges. Curly was played by the dude from The Commish, who also played Ben Grimm from the Fantastic Four. And he actually did an amazing job. I guess he's like considered one of the leading experts in the world on the Three Stooges. But he did an amazing job as Curly. And John Kaiser played Shemp. And if you haven't seen it, check it out. It was amazing. And yes, I did. I love Tales from the Crypt. Other friend of the channel, I'm sure you guys remember Spooky Creepy J. On Spooky Creepy J's channel, he actually does encapsulates of old horror TV shows, and one of his principal ones is Tales from the Crypt. Zublik says, hello again, Daily Dan. Thank you. Emily Noise says, I love Tales from the Crypt. Great. I used to watch it with my wife when we were like much younger, I guess I can say. She had HBO and I didn't. It made for cheap date night. Well, of course, I took her out to dinner first, but then we'd watch HBO Tales from the Crypt. Big Guys 45 says to Daily Dan, hey, thanks a lot, buddy. I really appreciate you and yourself helping me and my channel. I'm sure Dan loves helping people. And if you haven't subscribed to him, please do. All of his channels. Zublik says the problem is that once the live stream is over, the links disappear. Yes, so please take advantage of these links while you can. If you have to dip out from my live stream to subscribe, feel free to. I'll be here. I'd say I'd be here for at least another 40 minutes, 45 minutes. Oh my gosh, look who's here. The golden rage of TV, Pat. Pat, thanks for dropping by. He says, hey, Thrash, just dropping by to say hi, gang. Almost ready to drop my little teaser with Loretta Swit, audio only. I heard you did a interview with Loretta Swit. Congratulations. I can't tell you how much I'm looking forward to it. Congrats. Keith E says, I got the link. I signed up. Now I have to get on Danny's broadcast and get to figure that one out. Dan's actually left a couple to his, by the way. And once you find one, I'm sure you can find links to his others. He loves to do that. Big Guys 45 says, Hungry Jerk, do you like vinyl records at all? Just wondering. A lot of people saying hello to Pat, and they really should, by the way. Pat was one of my mentors, by the way. If you haven't checked out The Golden Rage of TV, you have to. He has some outstanding celebrity interviews, but even more important than that, he has some of the best nostalgia shorts I've ever seen. Like behind-the-scenes stuff of old vintage TV is just wonderful. If you like things like Leave It to Beaver and Hogan's Heroes and the Flintstones, and you're interested in behind-the-scenes stuff from those shows, you have to check out Pat at the Golden Rage of TV. Or actually, it's just Golden Rage of TV. If you put the on there, it'll throw you off. Oh, look, and Deleted the Good Stuff has given us a link. Thank you. You would be there for us. John Doe says, what is your Mount Rushmore of classic sci-fi movies? That is an outstanding question. That is an outstanding question. Well, if you want to do schlock or vintage, because I can do both. But when I think old science fiction, to be honest, I would probably go George Powell and do War of the Worlds and the Time Machine. And then sticking with H.G. Wells, I would do Things to Come. And rounding off with H.G. Wells, what the heck? I'll do Food of the Gods. You got to throw one schlock in there. um, but normally I would stick with post-apocalyptic films. So I would stick with um, Things to Come. I You could count the Time Machine as post-apocalyptic, but I don't. I would probably go more with Wizards, A Boy and His Dog, and Rats. the Italian post-apocalyptic, if not the Road Warrior. So that gives you classic sci-fi and post-apocalyptic. And if you want to do zombies, I'd probably throw in Night of the Living Dead, and then go with Return of the Living Dead, Day of the Dead, and heck with it, Dawn of the Dead. So now you have 3 Rushmores. I could almost give you a Rushmore of Rushmores. Huh. But why reinvent the wheel? Emily Miller says, I hate that movie. Don't scare me anymore. I guess the logical next step is a paranormal investigation. Didn't see which movie that was that you hate, but sorry you don't like it anymore. Uh-oh. And my comments just froze. Oh, here we go. uh, a lot of people saying hello to Pat. Oh, Jimin says, I like Tales from the Crypt. Yeah, a lot of us did. Still do. Oh, Dilly Dan actually found the link to Spooky Creepy J. There you go. Thank you very much. Thank you. He's actually joined us on a few, but I haven't seen him recently. Might be busy during the summers like I am. Big Guys 45 says, bye for now. Maybe back later. We could still be here. If we're not, we'll definitely see you next time. But thank you so much for joining us for the part that you were here for. Peace out, everybody. And friends, take good care of yourselves. Yes, you as well. Daily Dan's the good stuff says, if you go back to streams 4 or 5 days later, the links will be in the chats. Oh, really? Oh, I get it. The links take some time to load in. Good to know. Good. Pat says, mentor. Yes, you, much like Dave, helped me along in me preparing to launch a channel. You, Ian, Dave, you guys were instrumental to me. And Dan, I knew Dan before from some Star Trek stuff, but Dan, you've actually been a huge help for me as well, by the way. So us sort of Dave's faves, I like to call it, at the risk of being humoristic. But no, yeah, you guys have helped me a lot, and I really appreciate it. Oh, and he goes on to say, thanks. I appreciate the plug. Emily Miller says, Cindy D. Short People was a song by Randy Newman. He also said, You Got a Friend in Me for Toy Story. He got almost, before they had canceled, he almost got canceled for Short People. But yes, I do remember Randy Newman. If I remember correctly, he got to start writing jingles for commercials. Tom Huggy says, all those pawns. Thank you. Zublik says, Lord of the Flies. Lord of the Flies, I wouldn't count as a horror film. And also, which version? The ones from the 63 or the one from 90, whatever? Let's see. John Collins says, Bob, and then I lost him. Bob, did you watch concerts on HBO when they used to have them? Like Michael Jackson, Garth Brooks, Madonna, and whoever else might be missing. I'm not speaking of their excellent in stand-up specials. I don't recall watching a lot of concerts on MTV. Comedy specials, yes, but not concerts. Pat, the Golden Rage says Wizards was awesome. It certainly is. I'm putting together a retrospective of that and the stuff. I'm not gonna get it that till after the season's over because I want to do it on my new technology. Oh, Cindy D says, yes, I know Emily Miller. I was joking with Darrell. I was about 12 when the song came out. Oh, I see. Zublick says, no, Day the Earth Stood Still. I love the Day the Earth Stood Still. But you only have so many faces on Mount Rushmore. Tom Lucky Jerk says, met George Pell in 1979 pounds, believe it or not. Of course I believe. Why would you lie to me? John Doe says, why not do a Rushmore of the Rushmore and go for number 4? I probably should. Kenneth Wilkinson says, did you ever hear the radio broadcast of War of the Worlds Thrash? I have it on CD. Let's just see. Emily says, I was just saying no movies scare me. Oh, you were saying that no movies scare you. Oh, I see. I wish I could say that. I still get scared in movies. I used to make my father to take me to horror movies and then get scared afterwards, and he used to get bull. Not only because he didn't like a son who was a scaredy cat, but because he would warn me before we saw them. Daryl Johnson says, Commander Cody, Sky Marshal of the Universe. Remember they did that on Night Flight? It was hysterical. Zublick says, did you ever watch Helter Skelter, the TV movie, Emily? I saw it, and that yes, that actually scared me. There's a scene where one of the prosecutors is watched ops, and he looks up, and he's staring right into the face of the Antichrist, and he's just kind of going, hey. It's very, very, very unnerving. We talked about Wizards earlier, Pat. Thank you. Tom the Hungry Jerk says, I learned about you through Dave Pons. A lot of people did. I met a lot of my friends actually through Dave Sundstrom. I remember originally I was literally just somebody who made a lot of comments on his stations, and a couple of them he loved the insight and said, "Where did you hear this? Where did you find that?" And he and I just got to chatting, and then it was weird. I was doing an early video, and I asked him for some advice, and he actually took the time out to watch my videos and give me some advice, and he really helped me along. Elizabeth says, Lord of the Flies for science fiction? No, Lord of the Flies is not science fiction. Oh, it does take place after the Third World War. So technically it can be considered post-apocalyptic, which falls under the better of science. All right, I concede, Superplex. Lord of the Flies is science fiction. Happy? Daryl Johnson says, do it, Pat. When you can snatch the pebble from my hand, it's time for you to leave. John Collins says, Bob, my Sharona, my Sharona, my Sharona. Did I mention my Sharona? I hate to be that guy. John Collins wants me to do a creepy classic on my Sharona, and I promised him I would. I do have to apologize, though. It's when you read the backstory, it goes a little beyond creepy, but a promise is a promise. I will do it. Just please forgive me if it's outside the bounds of good taste. Oh, my flock is everywhere says, love you, Pondo. Thank you so much, Sarah. It's always nice having you around. Emily Miller says, I think everybody has done a history on Manson by now. There is certainly a lot. Oh, you don't mean Marilyn Manson. You mean Charles Manson. Sorry, I couldn't resist. But yes, there are a lot in both cases. Tom the Hungry Jerk says, Daryl, once you walked on rice paper and leave no trace, then you have learned. Let's just see. Daryl Johnson said his son has yet to do a movie. Whose son? My flock is everyone says love to all. That's so nice of you. Zublik says, I learned of T-Pons through Dave too. Yeah, like I said, a lot of people do. In fact, I believe a lot of you, actually, I first met ENC wanted to do a crossover and had seen some of my earlier book reviews and said we could do that book slash movie comparison. And that was the first time I appeared live anyway. I remember the first few attempts were tragic. Usually it wasn't even me, it was just a voiceover. I was on a phone. But yes, most of you folks I met through Dave. And Dave, thank you very much. I promised I'd plug him on the show. So Emily Mills says, yeah, John, I watched it at a young age, and I agree it ruined horror movies for me. I assume The Exorcist. Tom the Hungry Jerk says, Helter Skelter. Yes, that was the name of the movie, the made-for-TV movie about Charles Manson. I knew it was. I had a mental block. I'm so sorry. Sometimes when you're so busy reading and everything that you forget little details like apostrophes. But yes, that was the name of it. Oh, my Falcon Deborah says, Ponda, will you be on the Star Trek show with Dan and I? You know what? I would actually love to. We'll have to see if we have some type of technology. Because I don't have my new Chromebook. Once I have my new Chromebook, I'll be able to do a lot of things that I can't with my personal computer. But we'll have to see if we can actually have a compatible system where I can actually join you on your channel. But I would love to talk Star Trek with you guys. That's actually how I met Dan. We talked about Star Trek on one of his Star Trek posts. Emily Miller says San Quentin would make for a fun tour, provided that you out afterward. Big Guys 45s with apostrophes, possessive apostrophes, says, I'm currently working on my self-promotion video. Hold on, please. Thanks again. We will hold to the end of the earth. Well, Jemin says, I heard of you on Thrash through Corey's comedy channel. Thank you for reminding me. Guys, for those of you who've checked out Corey's comedy channel but haven't recently, he's started doing live posts. They're short, but he presents 5 new original jokes and talks about funny stuff, and it's great. So for those of you who haven't signed on to Corey's comedy channel, please do so, because you might really, really enjoy his new live posts as well. John Collins says, well, I thought that's what you meant by creepy songs. It's definitely creepy, and yet goldarn catchy. It sure is. But there's creepy and there's L. I mean, all right, I'll give the game away. When Sharona was a groupie of the Knack was the one, of course, did my Sharona. And this young lady, Sharona, ended up falling in love with the lead singer, and they were romantically involved for about 8 years. The problem was, the first of these 8 years, she was still only 17. And I'm trying to find a tactful way of working that into the creepy classic, because I try to avoid topics like that in my shows. But again, a promise is a promise, so I will find a way of tastefully covering that. Oh, and Deli Dan has given me the link, so hopefully that will take care of, as they say, that. Yes, because you'll be hosting instead of me. Whenever I tried to host Dan, things went afoul. Afoul. Yes, my flock, things went afoul. But since you're hosting, hopefully Dan and I will hop right on. So thank you. Let me know when you intend to do it, by the way. I'll be watching for a text. You said your phone died, Sarah? I'll be watching for a text, so if not from you, from Dan. Dan, did you get my text earlier today? Well, you're here, aren't you? Let's just see. Oh, you do use StreamYard. Good. That's what ENC uses, and it works very well with us. Zublik says San Quentin would be appropriate for Halloween. Aren't some of these old prisons haunted, by the way, for those of you who believe in that sort of thing? I've heard some old prisons can be haunted. Some of the places, let's save some of the stuff for Halloween. You know, Emily, I think you've given me a great idea, and I think Dave has something planned for Halloween, so maybe not on Halloween night proper, but maybe sometime in late October I can do one of my live chats, and we'll talk about from over the years and that type of thing. I think that might be very, very. Ziplik says, T-Pons, would you go to San Quentin for a visit? Yeah, if I didn't have to live there. Emily Miller says, I just want to talk to all those in there, get to know why they're behind what they did. I'll never tell you. Remember, everyone's innocent in prison. Let's just see. Oh, Dilly Dan has given us more links. Good, good, good. John Doe says, I remember the movie Cherry 2000. Yes, I like those obscure sci-fi movies. Yeah, I remember that one too, by the way. Do you remember the brief 80s 3D Renaissance? There was things like The Creature and Attack on Jared Sin and some of those. They weren't great movies. They were very gimmicky. But I remember going to the theaters to see 3D sci-fi movies, thinking, "Oh wow, how retro!" Because that was like a big thing in the 50s. And Emily Miller says heavy metal is on Tubi. I own heavy metal. If you've ever seen any of my old posts from my garage, I have a heavy metal movie poster on my back wall. Mhm. Keithy says, if Ella Fitzgerald married Darth Vader, would she be Elevator? No, you say I'm visually impaired, but that's not the difference. Okay, I'm going to try that one again because I think I missed something. If Ella Fitzgerald married Darth Vader, would she be Elevator? No. You say I'm visually impaired, but that's no the difference. I still feel I'm missing something. I know who Ella Fitzgerald is, and I know who Darth Vader is, but no, I am your father. But either way. Okay, he says, I just screwed up that prior post. I'm sorry. No, it's okay. I gave it my valid attempt. I really did. Okay, John Collins says, Bob, did you enjoy that movie Dogma? I'm sure you saw it, given all the Boston connections such as Matt Damon research religious as a lot of people did. Um that's creepy. Well, hopefully it'll come back. I thought it actually was very poignant and thought provoking. I can certainly see why people would have found it inappropriate, but again, all the actual messages about God weren't in any way sacrilegious. Emily Miller goes on to say Dogma is freaking awesome. Of course, Alanis Morissette is just so cute. Like, yes. Zublik says buffering. Yes, as soon as I mentioned God, I started buffering. And I'm not going to touch that one. Emily Miller says Jay and Silent Bob are my. You're going to find this hard to believe, Em. My preferred Halloween costume. I have an old duster, and I wear it with a hockey jersey, and I put my ball cap on backwards, and I go as Silent Bob. And you'd be astonished how many people figure it out. It worked better when I used to have slightly longer hair. It's kind of short now, but you'd be surprised how many people knew I was Silent Bob. I never had anybody complain Jay to my Silent Bob, but John Doe says Heavy Metal 2 was horrible. I can call it horrible. It wasn't good. It just if it was just a different animated movie and not Heavy Metal 2, I probably would have liked it better. Yeah, Dilly Den says Dogma is cursing. You're buffering. Yes, am I still buffering? Zerblek says you still dress up for Halloween T-Pawns. Up in the last couple of years, it kind of went downhill with the whole pandemic thing. We don't really, anyway. We don't do a lot of some of the fun stuff we did before. In the restaurant I worked at, we when you came into work, you would come in costume. One year I went as I used my Santa suit. I came in as Saint Nicholas, most confusing Halloween costume ever. But yeah, the staff, the hostesses, the bartenders, the servers would all come in costume, and I was Silent Bob for a couple of years. And Miller says Clerks 3 is being filmed now. I did not know that. Thank you. John Collins says, Bob, and then when you stop mentioning God, you stop buffering. A little woo woo, don't you think? Yes. And if I said anything sacrilegious, I do apologize. uh, it's actually funny, people say, do you ever talk to God? And I go, I talk to God all the time. In fact, he's talking to me right now, and he's usually saying something like, stop before you offend somebody. So perhaps he was afraid I was sailing a little close to the wind. But regardless, we will now press on. The buffering seems to have stopped, and I'll be a good boy. Keithy says, if Ella Fitzgerald married Darth Vader, would her new name be
Elevator?
My wife got that. Would her new name be Elevator? Yes, it would. Yes, it would. And thank you, dear. My wife, folks. Permanently off camera, but always present with us. Daily Dan, good stuff, says no good now. I guess I'm still buffering, or at least I am in his area. If I am still buffering, please clue me in, everyone. Tom Hunger Jerk says, speaking of Darth Vader, met David Prowse, and my brother's friend works for James Earl Jones. Got to meet him. That's very, very cool. Emily Miller says, message retracted. And message retracted to you, Emily. Thank you. Daryl Johnson said, good one, Keith. We got there in the end. Thank you. Emily Miller says, it's me, y'all. I don't do that G guy. To own their each. Let's just see. Oh, Dilly Dan has given us a sneak peek of Clerks 3. He has given us a link. Zublik says, and God spoke. He sure does. Oh, and Emily, in answer to your question, she goes, what did he say? He says, knock it off before I offend someone. Usually that's what he's telling me. Superblex says, elevator, Emily. Oh, Dillian's a good stuff to say. Now I'm coming in loud and clear. Thank you. John Doe says, no buffering from what I'm seeing. He says saying, but I think he meant seeing. Good, it may have just been a temporary glitch. Supposedly there's some thunder showers moving in, not here on Cape Cod, but somewhere what we call off Cape. Off Cape is anything on the other side of the canal. It could be Plymouth, it could be Tierra del Fuego. But there's Cape Cod and there's off Cape. It's like something out of a Stephen King novel. What Jamin says, I can see and hear you now. Can you hear me? Colin, my flock is everywhere says laugh out loud. Wow, we still got 9 people going. It's been almost 2 hours. Well, folks, it has been almost 2 hours. I'm going to give us a few more minutes. People seem to be wrapping up. I'm going to a few more minutes, but I'll take a few more questions. John Collins says, Bob, if you can have 4 dinner guests over for a grand dinner and beverages, conceding that you enjoy literature, who were your 2 writers and who would be your 2 entertaining figures? I'm assuming we're going to do this hypothetical, and they could be from any time period. Because for my writers, I would have to have H.G. Wells. I love H.G. Wells. I would have to have H.G. Wells. And then I'd probably go with John Steinbeck, just because of his insight with Americana. As far as entertaining figures, I would probably go with like 2 powerhouses, just like Orson Welles and Rod Steiger, who would just totally keep the whole thing going the whole time. You know what I'm saying? Emily Miller says, I love Strong Storms. We haven't had a lot of good ones this year. We've had the driest summer in recorded history in Massachusetts this year. They say the storms coming in could knock us out of the top 10 because they're really good trenches. And again, they haven't got it yet, but they're heading this way. So I'm hoping because they're talking about water rushing in some areas. It's getting a little concerning. But yes, I agree with you. I love, as Eddie Rabbit said, I love a rainy night. Dan brings up a good point. Some states are getting flooding. I'm very, very sorry about that. Let's see. So Blake says we have a lot of rain here in Puerto Rico. Is that good or bad? Daryl Johnson says, yes, Johnny Cash. A Johnny Cash song. I love Johnny Cash, but I missed the song you're referring to. Emily Mills says, you're in Puerto Rico, Superplex? Yeah, I did not know that either. Superplex says, Charles Dickens. You mean Barnaby Rudge. Let's just see. Oh, give it a listen. Let's see. Tom Monkey Jerk says, thanks, post. I mean, thank you for the post. Daryl Johnson says, Charles Dickens don't surf, as in Charlie don't surf. Love it. I absolutely love it. Thank you. How many people got that? Emily says, I hope the hurricane season is mild this year than Superplex. Well, I hope it is for us too. I mean, New England, we haven't gotten a good hurricane in about 30 years. Last one was in 91, Hurricane Bob. I hope we remain overdue because I just don't feel like another hurricane. Those are a pain in the backside. Superplex says, Thomas Pynchon T. Pons. Why not? He can come too. Let's just see. My flex everyone says, Dan, I'm high AF. LOL. It's a free country. It's a free country. Daryl Jones says, had a GF do her dead dog face. Sorry. Simply says, didn't you suffer from Superstorm Sandy, T-Pons? No, we skated. I mean, don't get me wrong, we got some wind and rain and stuff, but we were not devastated like they were. So no, we didn't. Was that the one? There was one actually, believe it or not, there was one. This actually has happened a couple times in my lifetime, where rather than hit the coast like they normally do, they kind of go right up the Connecticut River Valley and go right into Vermont. And the people in Vermont really think that they're safe from hurricanes, but they're not. And I don't mean to laugh when I say that, but you think Vermont, the one state in the country that, the one state of New England, I should say, the one state in New England that doesn't have a coastline, you'd think they'd be immune to hurricanes, but no, they're not. Of course, we get tornadoes now too. Emily Miller says Hugo came right through my hometown, but I was in Tennessee at the time, so I missed it. Glad you missed it. My Fluck is everywhere says California's hot and dry. Zublik says yes, Manhattan got flooded. Daryl Johnson said GF girlfriend. And Keith E says, I was in Newport Harbor Hotel for Sandy. I was the only person scheduled on the first floor. They moved everybody else upstairs. Well, I hope you're okay. Anyway, I will certainly keep you guys tracked this hurricane season. Hey, it's actually, believe it or not, we're almost on the other side of it. But in any event, folks, I want to thank you all for joining me tonight. Emily, thank you specifically because you said you've been going to join us for some time, and today you haven't. We thoroughly appreciate that. And to everyone else, thank you so much for joining. For those of you who already left, you probably won't hear this unless you watch this in replay. But thank you guys for joining as well. I always have so much fun with these. And apparently you guys do too. All we kind of do is just kind of sit around and chat, but apparently you guys eat it up because we've been going strong for 2 full hours. Oh, and yes, Emily brings up a good point. It doesn't officially end until hurricane season until November 1st, but usually by middle of September, you're on the other side. The last half of September and October, you can get them, but you're less likely. And while I'm here, though, Mystery Men and Monsters, I got here just in time for the show to end. M, I'm so sorry you missed the show. Please watch it, rewatch. It's so nice having you. We were talking about movies a lot tonight, too, by the way. Please watch it and rewatch and tell us what you think. But I'm so glad you made it. Great seeing you. Emily Miller says, everybody hit that thumbs up before you go. Emily, thank you. You are so nice of you to say that. Again, please hit the like and forward to your friends. By the way, I'm at 167 now. I'm hoping to hit 200 very, very, very soon. A lot of people saying good night, thank you, good night. We're becoming like the Waltons. Good night, John Boy. Good night, Liz Girl. Good night, everyone. Good night, everyone else. Oh, and Emily Miller reminded me Hugo hit North Carolina in September 22nd, 1989. My dad lived in Raleigh. He was okay, but I remember being very, very, very concerned. Hungry Jerk says Pawns drinks and knows things. He sure does. Mystery Man and Monster says we'll do things like it has been hit. Thank you again. Anyway, folks, I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. Have a wonderful evening. Be good, be safe, be careful. And I'm looking forward to seeing you all again very, 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 very soon. Peace.